Welcome back. I am Pemberton, and this is part 9 of our journey through Herodotus's Egypt. Having told us how the Egyptians worship, he now shows us where at the vast yearly festivals where, he claims, 700,000 pilgrims drink more wine at Bubastis than in all the rest of the year. Then come the animals, the cats that the people save from a burning house before they save themselves, the crocodile that is a pampered god in one town and dinner in the next, the river horse, the phoenix, and the sacred Ibis. And at last the embalmers, with their 3 grades of eternity, from the costly to the cheap. It is Herodotus the traveller at his most wonderful. Let us go on.
This is how it is done there. How they celebrate the festival in honor of Isis at the city of Bucyrus I have already told, for as I said, after the sacrifice they beat themselves in mourning, all of them, men and women, many tens of thousands of people. For whom they beat themselves, it is not permitted by religion for me to say. As many Carians as live in Egypt do this even more than the Egyptians themselves, since they also cut their foreheads with knives, and by this it is shown that they are foreigners and not Egyptians. At the times when they gather at the city of Sais for their sacrifices, on a certain night, they all kindle many lamps in the open air around the houses. The lamps are saucers filled with salt and oil mixed together, and the wick floats by itself on the surface. This burns throughout the whole night. The festival is called the Chnekaya, the lighting of the lamps. Moreover, those Egyptians who have not come to this solemn assembly still observe the night of the festival and all light lamps themselves. Thus lamps are lit not only in Sais, but throughout all Egypt. As for the reason why light and honor are assigned to this night, there is a sacred story told about it. To Heliopolis and Buto they go year by year and do sacrifice only. At Papyrus they perform sacrifice and worship as elsewhere, but besides this, when the sun begins to set, while a few of the priests are occupied with the image of the god, the greater number of them stand at the entrance of the temple with wooden clubs. Other men, more than 1,000 in number, who intend to fulfill a vow, also stand in a body opposite them, all likewise carrying wooden staves. The image, which is in a small wooden shrine covered with gold, they take out on the day before to another sacred building. The few priests left around the image then draw a 4-wheeled wagon that carries the shrine, and the image within it. The other priests standing in the gateway try to prevent it from entering, while the men under vow come to the god's assistance and strike them, and the others defend themselves. Then a hard fight with staves takes place. They break one another's heads, and in my opinion many even die from the wounds they receive. The Egyptians, however, told me that no one dies. The local people say that they established this solemn assembly for the following reason. The mother of Ares, they say, used to live in this temple, and Ares, having been brought up away from her, came there when he was grown, wishing to visit his mother. The attendants of his mother's temple, not having seen him before, did not allow him to pass in, but kept him away. So he brought men from another city to help him, handled the attendants of the temple roughly, and entered to visit his mother. From this, they say, the exchange of blows became the custom in honor of Ares at his festival. The Egyptians were the first to make it a point of religion not to lie with women in temples, and not to enter temples after leaving women without first bathing. Almost all other peoples, except the Egyptians and the Hellenes, lie with women in temples and enter a temple after leaving women without bathing, because they believe there is no difference in this respect between human beings and animals. They say that they see animals and various kinds of birds coupling both in the temples and in the sacred enclosures of the gods. If this were not pleasing to the god, they say, the animals would not do it. This is how these peoples defend what they do, but I disapprove of it. The Egyptians are exceedingly careful in their observances, both in other matters concerning sacred rites and in the following customs. Egypt, although it borders Libya, does not have very many wild animals. But such animals as it has are all considered sacred by the Egyptians, some living with humans and others not. If I were to say for what reasons the sacred animals have been dedicated in this way, I would fall into a discussion of matters concerning the gods, which I very much wish not to speak about. What I have already said, touching lightly on those matters, I said because necessity forced me. Concerning these animals, there is the following custom. Certain Egyptians, both men and women, have been appointed to provide food for each separate kind of animal, and this office passes down from father to son. Those who live in the various cities perform vows to the animals in this way. When they make a vow to the god to whom the animal belongs, they shave the heads of their children, either the whole head, half of it, or a third part. Then they weigh the hair against silver, and whatever its weight is, the man gives that amount to the woman who provides for the animals. She cuts up fish of equal value and gives it to the animals for food. In this way food has been appointed for their support. If anyone kills one of these animals intentionally, the penalty is death. If unintentionally, the penalty is whatever the priests appoint. But whoever kills an ibis or a hawk, whether intentionally or unintentionally, must die. There are great numbers of the animals that live with humans, and there would be many more if not for the accidents that happen to cats. When the females have produced young, they no longer habitually go to the males, and the males, seeking to mate with them, cannot do so. To deal with this, the males contrive as follows. They either take the young away from the females by force or remove them secretly and kill them. though after killing them they do not eat them. The females, deprived of their young and desiring more, come to the males, for this creature is fond of its young. Moreover, when a fire occurs, the cats seem to be divinely possessed. While the Egyptians stand at intervals and watch the cats, taking no care to put out the fire, the cats slip through or leap over the men and jump into the flames. When this happens, great mourning comes upon the Egyptians. In whatever house a cat has died a natural death, all who live in that house shave only their eyebrows, but those in whose houses a dog has died shave their whole body and also their head. When cats die, they are carried away to sacred buildings in the city of Bubastis, where they are embalmed and buried. Dogs, however, each people buries in its own city in sacred tombs, and ichneumons are buried in the same way as dogs. True mice and hawks they carry away to the city of Buto, and Ibis to Hermopolis. Bears, which are not often seen, and wolves, not much larger than foxes, they bury on the spot where they are found lying. The nature of the crocodile is as follows. During the 4 coldest months this creature eats nothing. It has 4 feet and belongs both to land and water, for it lays and hatches eggs on land. Most of the day it remains on dry land, but all night it stays in the river, because the water is in fact warmer than the clear open air and the dew. Of all mortal creatures known to us, it grows to the greatest bulk from the smallest beginning. The eggs it lays are not much larger than goose eggs, and the newly hatched young is in proportion to the egg, but as it grows, it becomes as much as 17 cubits long, and sometimes even larger. It has eyes like those of a pig and large tusks, like teeth in proportion to the size of its body. Unlike all other beasts, it grows no tongue. Nor does it move its lower jaw, but brings the upper jaw down toward the lower, and in this too, it is unlike all other beasts. It also has strong claws, and a scaly hide on its back that cannot be pierced. It is blind in the water, but in the air it has very keen sight. Since the crocodile lives in the water, it keeps the inside of its mouth full of leeches. All other birds and animals flee from it, but the trochilus is at peace with it, because the crocodile receives benefit from her. When the crocodile has come out of the water onto land and has opened its mouth, which it generally does toward the west wind, the trochilus enters its mouth and swallows the leeches. The crocodile is pleased by the benefit and does no harm to the trochilus. For some Egyptians, crocodiles are sacred animals, while for others they are not, and these others treat them instead as enemies. Those who live around Thebes and around the lake of Marshes hold them to be most sacred. Each of these 2 peoples keeps 1 crocodile, chosen from the whole number, which has been trained to tameness. They put hanging ornaments of molten stone and gold into its ears and anklets around its front feet. They give it appointed food and sacrificial victims, and treat it as well as possible while it lives. After it dies, they embalm it and bury it in sacred tombs. But those who live around the city of Elephantine even eat crocodiles, since they do not hold them sacred. They are called not crocodiles, but champsi. The Ionians gave them the name crocodile, because they compared their form to the crocodiles, or lizards, that appear in the stone walls in their own country. There are many different ways of catching crocodiles. I shall describe the one that seems to me most worthy of being told. A man puts the back of a pig on a hook as bait and lets it go into the middle of the river, while he himself stands on the river bank with a live young pig, which he beats. Crocodile hears its cries and heads toward the sound. When it finds the pig's back, it swallows it. Then the men pull, and when the crocodile is drawn onto land, the hunter first of all immediately plasters its eyes with mud. Once he has done this, he masters it very easily. If he does not do it, he has much trouble. The river horse is sacred in the district of Papyrus, but for the other Egyptians it is not sacred. Its appearance is this: it is 4-footed, cloven, hoofed like an ox, flat, nose with a mane like a horse and tusks, like teeth with the tail and voice of a horse, and in size as large as the largest ox. Its hide is so exceedingly thick that when it has been dried, shafts of javelins are made from it. There are also otters in the river, which the Egyptians consider sacred. Among fish they regard the one called the lepidotos as sacred, and also the eel. These they say are sacred to the Nile. Among birds the fox, goose is sacred. There is also another sacred bird called the phoenix, which I myself have not seen except in a painting, for in truth it comes to them very rarely at intervals of 500 years, as the people of Heliopolis say. They say it comes regularly when its father dies. If it is like the painting, it is of this size and nature. Some of its feathers are gold, colored, and others red, and in outline and size, it is as nearly as possible like an eagle. This bird, they say, though I cannot believe the story, contrives as follows. Setting out from Arabia, it carries its father, plastered in myrrh, to the temple of the sun Helios and buries him there. It carries him in this way. First it forms an egg of myrrh as large as it is able to carry, then it tests carrying it. When it has tested it sufficiently, it hollows out the egg, places its father inside, and plasters over with more myrrh the part of the egg that it hollowed out to put its father in. When its father is laid in it, the egg proves, they say, to be the same weight as before. After plastering it up, the bird carries the whole to Egypt to the temple of the sun. Thus they say this bird does. Around Thebes there are also sacred serpents, not at all harmful to humans, small in size, and with 2 horns growing from the top of the head. When they die, they are buried in the temple of Zeus, for they say they are sacred to this god. There is also a region in Arabia, situated nearly opposite the city of Buto, to which I went to inquire about the winged serpents. When I came there, I saw bones and spines of serpents in such great quantity that it is impossible to give their number. There were heaps of spines, some large, some less large, and others smaller still, and there were many such heaps. The region where the spines are scattered on the ground is like an entrance from a narrow mountain pass into a great plain, and this plain adjoins the plain of Egypt. The story says that at the beginning of spring, winged serpents fly from Arabia toward Egypt, and the birds called ibises meet them at the entrance to this country. Do not allow the serpents to pass and kill them. Because of this deed, the Arabians say, the ibis has come to be greatly honored by the Egyptians, and the Egyptians also agree that this is the reason they honor these birds. The outward form of the ibis is this. It is deep black all over, with legs like those of a crane and a very curved beak, and in size it is about equal to a rail. This is the appearance of the black kind that fights with the serpents, but of the kind that most often crowd around people's feet, for there are two different kinds of ibises. The head is bare, as is the whole throat, and the feathers are white except on the head, the neck, the tips of the wings, and the rump. In all these parts I have mentioned it is deep black. In its legs and the form of its head it resembles the other kind. As for the serpent, its form is like that of a water snake. Its wings are not feathered, but most nearly resemble the wings of a bat. Let this much be enough concerning sacred animals. Of the Egyptians themselves, those who live in the cultivated part of Egypt practice memory more than any other people, and are by far the most learned in history of all those I have experienced. Their manner of life is as follows. For 3 successive days in each month they purge themselves, seeking health with emetics and clysters. They think that all the diseases that exist in people are produced by the food on which they live. From other causes also the Egyptians are, in my opinion, the healthiest of all people after the Libyans, because of the seasons, since the seasons do not change. For diseases are especially apt to be produced in people by changes generally, and above all by changes of the seasons. As for their diet, it is this. They eat bread, making loaves of maize, which they call kilistes, and they regularly use a wine made from barley, for they have no vines in their land. Of their fish, some they dry in the sun and then eat without cooking, while others they eat cured in brine. Of birds they eat quails, ducks, and small birds without cooking, after first curing them. Everything else they have belonging to the class of birds or fishes, except those they have set apart as sacred, they eat roasted or boiled. When you look upon this, drink and be merry, for you will be like this when you are dead. At the entertainments of the rich among them, when they have finished eating, a man carries around a wooden figure of a dead body in a coffin, made as much like the real thing as possible by painting and carving, and measuring about a cubit or 2 cubits each way. He shows this to each of those drinking together, and says the words just given. Thus they act at their drinking parties. The customs they practice are derived from their fathers, and they do not acquire others in addition. Among other customs worthy of mention, they have one song, that of Linos, the same song that is sung both in Phoenicia and in Cyprus and elsewhere, though it has a different name according to each nation. This song agrees exactly with the one the Hellenes sing while calling on the name of Linos. So, among many other things that I wonder at concerning Egypt, I especially wonder where they got the song of Linos. It is clear, however, that they have sung this song from immemorial time, and in the Egyptian tongue Linos is called Maneros. The Egyptians told me that he was the only son of the first man who became king of Egypt, that he died before his time, and that he was honored by the Egyptians with these laments. They said this was their first and only song. In another respect the Egyptians agree with some of the Hellenes, namely the Lacedaemonians, but not with the rest. Their younger men, when they meet their elders, give way and move out of the path, and when their elders approach, they rise from their seats. But in the following matter, they do not agree with any of the Hellenes. Instead of addressing one another on the roads, they make reverence, lowering the hand down to the knee. They wear linen tunics around their legs with fringes, which they call calasiris. Over these they throw white woolen garments. Woolen garments, however, are not taken into the temples, nor are people buried in them, for this is not permitted by religion. In these points they agree with the observances called Orphic and Bacchic, which are really Egyptian, and also with those of the Pythagoreans. For one who takes part in these mysteries is likewise forbidden by religious rule to be buried in woolen garments. About this there is a sacred story told. Besides these things, the Egyptians have also discovered to which god each month and each day belongs, what fortunes a person born on any particular day will meet with, how he will die, and what kind of person he will be. These discoveries were taken up by those Hellenes who occupied themselves with poetry. The Egyptians have also discovered more portents than all other people besides. When a portent has happened, they observe and write down the event that follows it, and if anything resembling it ever happens afterward, they believe that the resulting event will be similar. Their divination is arranged in this way. The art is not assigned to any human being, but to certain of the gods. In their land there are oracles of Heracles, Apollo, Athene, Artemis, Ares, and Zeus, and also the one they hold in greatest honor of all, the oracle of Leto in the city of Buto. The manner of divination, however, is not established among them in the same fashion everywhere, but differs from place to place. The art of medicine among them is divided in this way. Each physician is a physician of one disease and no more. The whole country is full of physicians, for some profess themselves physicians of the eyes, others of the head, others of the teeth, others of ailments of the stomach, and others of the more obscure diseases. Their customs of mourning and burial are these. Whenever any household has lost a man of any importance, all the women of that house immediately plaster their heads, or even their faces, with mud. Then, leaving the corpse inside the house, they go back and forth through the city and beat themselves, with their garments bound up by a girdle and their breasts exposed. With them go all the women who are related to the dead man. On the other side, the men beat themselves too, also with their garments bound up by a girdle. When they have done this, they then carry the body to the embalming. Certain persons practice this occupation regularly and inherit it as a craft. Whenever a corpse is brought to them, they show those who brought it wooden models of corpses, painted to resemble reality. They say the best method of embalming is that of the one whose name I think it impious to mention when speaking of a matter of this kind. The second method they show is less good than this and also less expensive, and the third is the least expensive of all. After explaining these, they ask in which way the relatives want the corpse of their friend prepared. Then the relatives, after agreeing on a certain price, go away, and the embalmers, left behind in their buildings, embalm according to the best of these methods as follows. First, with a crooked iron tool, they draw out the brain through the nostrils, extracting part of it in this way and part by pouring in drugs. After this, with a sharp Ethiopian stone, they make a cut along the side and take out the entire contents of the belly. When they have cleared out the cavity and cleansed it with palm wine, they cleanse it again with pounded spices. Then they fill the belly with pure pounded myrrh, cassia, and other spices except frankincense and sew it together again. After doing this, they keep the body for embalming covered in natron for 70 days. It is not permitted to embalm it for longer than this. When the 70 days have passed, they wash the corpse and wrap its whole body in fine linen cut into bands, smearing the underside with gum, which the Egyptians commonly use instead of glue. Then the relatives receive it from them, and have a wooden figure made in the shape of a man. When they have had this made, they enclose the corpse in it, shut it up inside, and then store it in a burial chamber, setting it upright against the wall. Thus they deal with the corpses prepared in the most costly way. For those who want the middle method and wish to avoid great expense, they prepare the corpse as follows. They fill their syringes with oil obtained from cedar wood and immediately fill the belly of the corpse with it, doing this without cutting the body open or taking out the bowels. They inject the oil through the breach, and after preventing the liquid from flowing back, they keep the body for the appointed number of embalming days. On the last day, they let the cedar oil come out from the belly, where they had previously put it in. It has such power that it brings out with it the bowels and internal organs of the body dissolved, and the natron dissolves the flesh, so that only the skin and bones of the corpse are left. When they have done this, they give back the corpse at once in that condition, without working on it any further. The third kind of embalming, used for the bodies of those with fewer means, is as follows. They cleanse out the belly with a purge, then keep the body for embalming during the 70 days, and immediately after that give it back to those who brought it to be carried away. The wives of men of rank, when they die, are not given at once to be embalmed, nor are women who are very beautiful or more highly regarded than others. Instead, on the 3rd or 4th day after their death, and not before, they are delivered to the embalmers. They do this so that the embalmers may not abuse their women, for they say that one embalmer was once caught doing so to the corpse of a woman recently dead, and his fellow craftsmen reported him. Whenever anyone, whether an Egyptian or a stranger, is found to have been carried off by a crocodile or brought to death by the river itself, the people of whatever city he has been cast up near must embalm him, lay him out in the fairest way they can, and bury him in a sacred burial place. None of his relatives or friends may touch him. The priests of the Nile themselves handle the corpse and bury it as the body of one who was something more than human. Hellenic customs they will by no means follow, and generally speaking they follow the customs of no other people whatever. This rule is observed by most of the Egyptians. But there is a large city named Chemis in the Theban district near Neapolis, and in this city there is a temple of Perseus the son of Dani. It is square in shape, and date palms grow around it. The gateway of the temple is built of stone and is very large, and at its entrance stand 2 great stone statues. Within this enclosure is a temple building, and in it stands an image of Perseus. The people of Chemis say that Perseus often appears in their land and often within the temple, and that sometimes a sandal worn by him is found, 2 cubits long. Whenever this appears, all Egypt prospers. This is what they say, and in honor of Perseus they act after the Hellenic fashion in this way. They hold an athletic contest, including the whole list of games, and they offer as prizes cattle, cloaks, and skins. When I asked why Perseus was accustomed to appear to them alone, and why they were set apart from all the other Egyptians by holding an athletic contest, they said that Perseus had been born from their city. Danaus and Lynceus, they said, were men of Chemis and had sailed to Hellas, and from them they traced a line of descent down to Perseus. They told me that Perseus had come to Egypt for the reason the Hellenes also give, namely to bring the Gorgon's head from Libya, that he had then visited them as well and recognized all his kin, and that before coming to Egypt he had learned the name of Kim as well, since he had heard it from his mother. They said they celebrated the athletic contest for him by his own command. All these are customs practiced by the Egyptians who live above the fens. Those settled in the fenland have for the most part the same customs as the other Egyptians, both in other matters and also in living each with only one wife, as the Hellenes do. But for economy and food they have invented the following practices besides. When the river has become full and the plains have been flooded, great numbers of lilies grow in the water, which the Egyptians call lotos. They cut these with a sickle and dry them in the sun. Then they pound the part that grows in the middle of the lotos, which is like the head of a poppy, and make from it loaves baked with fire. The root of this lotos is also edible, and has a rather sweet taste. It is round in shape and about the size of an apple. There are other lilies too, with flowers resembling roses, which also grow in the river. From them the fruit is produced in a separate vessel springing from the root beside the plant itself, and it very nearly resembles a wasp's comb. In this there grow many edible seeds, the size of olive stones, and they are eaten either fresh or dried. Besides this, they pull up from the fens the papyrus that grows each year. They cut off the upper parts and turn them to other uses, but the lower part left for about a cubit in length they eat or sell. Those who want the papyrus at its very best bake it in an oven heated red hot, and then eat it. Some of these people also live on fish alone. After catching them and taking out the entrails, they dry them in the sun, and when they are dry they use them for food. Fish that swim in shoals are not produced in great numbers in the rivers, but are bred in the lakes, and they act as follows. When the desire to breed comes upon them, they swim out in shoals toward the sea. The males lead the way, shedding their milk as they go, while the females follow and swallow it, and from it they become impregnated. When they have become full of young in the sea, they swim back up again, each shoal to its own haunts. The same fish no longer lead as before, now the lead belongs to the females. As they lead the way in shoals, they do just what the males had done. They shed their eggs a few grains at a time, and the males following behind swallow them. These grains are fish, and from the grains that survive and are not swallowed, the fish grow which are afterward bred up. Those fish caught while swimming out to sea are found to be rubbed on the left side of the head, while those caught as they swim back up are rubbed on the right side. This happens because as they swim down to the sea they keep close to the land on the left side of the river, and as they swim up again they keep to the same side, approaching and touching the bank as much as they can, doubtless from fear of straying from their course because of the current. When the Nile begins to swell, the hollow places of the land and the depressions beside the river first begin to fill, as the water soaks through from the river. As soon as they become full of water, they are at once all filled with little fish. Where these are likely produced, I think I understand. In the preceding year, when the Nile goes down, the fish first lay eggs in the mud and then withdraw with the last of the retreating waters. When the time comes round again and the water once more comes over the land, from these eggs immediately come the fish of which I speak. So it is concerning the fish. For anointing, those Egyptians who live in the fens use oil from the castor berry, which the Egyptians call kiki. They do this as follows. Along the banks of rivers and pools they sow these plants, which in wild form grow of themselves in the land of the Hellenes. In Egypt, when sown, they produce berries in great quantity, but with a bad smell. After gathering them, some people cut them up and press the oil from them, others first roast them, then boil them down and collect what runs from them. The oil is fatty and no less suitable for burning than olive oil, but it gives off an unpleasant smell. Against the gnats, which are very numerous, they have contrived the following. Those who live above the fenland are helped by the towers, which they climb when they go to rest, because the gnats are not able to fly high because of the winds. But those who live in the fenland have devised another method instead of towers. Each man has a casting net, with which he catches fish by day, but at night he uses it for this purpose. He puts the casting net around the bed in which he sleeps, then creeps in under it and goes to sleep. If he sleeps wrapped in a garment or a linen sheet, the gnats bite through these, but through the net they do not even try to bite. The boats with which they carry cargoes are made of the thorny acacia, whose form is very like that of the Kyrenian lotos, and what exudes from it is gum. From this tree they cut pieces of wood about 2 cubits long and arrange them like bricks, fastening the boat together by running a great number of long bolts through the 2-cubit pieces. When they have fastened the boat together in this way, they lay cross pieces over the top, using no ribs for the sides, and inside they caulk the seams with papyrus. They make one steering oar for it, which is passed through the bottom of the boat. They have a mast of acacia and sails of papyrus. These boats cannot sail up the river unless a very fresh wind is blowing, but they are towed from the shore. Downstream, however, they travel as follows. They have a door-shaped crate made of tamarisk wood and red mats sewn together, and also a stone of about 2 talents in weight, bored with a hole. Of these, the boatman lets the crate float ahead of the boat, fastened with a rope, and lets the stone drag behind by another rope. The crate, as the force of the stream presses on it, moves swiftly and draws on the bars, for so these boats are called, while the stone, dragging behind and sunk deep in the water, keeps its course straight. They have these boats in great numbers, and some of them carry many thousands of talents burden. When the Nile comes over the land, only the cities are seen rising above the water, most nearly resembling islands in the Aegean Sea. For the rest of Egypt becomes a sea, and the cities alone rise above the water. Accordingly, whenever this happens, they travel by water not by the channels of the river, but across the middle of the plain. For example, when one sails up from Naucratis to Memphis, the passage then goes close by the pyramids, whereas the usual passage is not the same even here, but goes by the point of the delta and the city of Kirkosoros. If you sail over the plain to Naucratis from the sea and from Kinobos, you will go by Anthylla, and the city called after Archander. Of these, Anthylla is a city of note, and is especially assigned to the wife of the man who reigns over Egypt, to supply her with sandals. This has been the case since the time when Egypt came under the Persians. The other city seems to me to have its name from Archander, the son-in-law of Danaus, who was the son of Theos, the son of Achaeos, for it is called the city of Archander. There might indeed be another Archander, but in any case the name is not Egyptian.
And there we will pause, having learned rather more about embalming than a gentleman strictly needs to know. We have reached the end of Herodotus's account of how the Egyptians live. Next time, he turns to how they have lived the whole long row of their kings. Next time, in part 10, the priests read him their history from a papyrus, beginning with the very first man to rule Egypt, and ending with a story that says the most famous war in the world was fought over a woman who was never there. Mind the footnotes, and beware the folly.